usually it's accepted to like build a completely fake argumentation for your idea, which has real argumentation from your personal unique experiences. So you build a completely fake argumentation behind it, okay? Instead, in order to share it with other people, because Greetings, this is Eugene the Philosopher, the greatest living philosopher after the unfortunate passing of Quentin Robert de Nameland, who has been the greatest living philosopher before me. In this rather brief video, I wish to discuss something I've mentioned previously in one of my videos, namely the Inheritance of Ideas video. Watch the link in the description. Also, something relevant to one of my more recent videos, namely the Tragedy of Thinking. See the links in the description, etc., etc. But roughly, you can describe it as such. It's like an assortment of ideas, but some of them would be like why tastes differ, like why different people have different tastes, how to arrive at a profound idea, and again, this second tragedy of thinking itself, if you wish. So, okay, I'll try to build up a sort of a uniting framework for all of these questions. And let me just start right off the bat with the how to arrive at a profound idea topic. So, you see, the thing is, like, it's kind of a simplified model, right? So in order to get to a, like, let's say a very unique location from where you are, you will have to probably take some sort of a very unique path. A pretty simple consideration, okay? So, and you have to, in order to get to this unique location, well, you see, the very thing about the unique location is that you are the only one who can possibly get there. See where I'm going? As the saying goes, like, he followed the footsteps of the great people, so his own footsteps were left among them, right? Or how Nietzsche said, like, that's the tragedy of your own path, is that you're never gonna meet anyone when you're following your own path, like, truly. Well, this is kind of what I'm talking about here. Like, you have some unique trajectory through life, if you wish, in some abstract sense, and you arrive at certain unique location. In this case, in the context of this video, meaning you arrive at some sort of profound idea, unique idea, which could only have been formulated by you, essentially. At least at this point in time. Maybe like 1,000 years later, somebody else would take a similar journey. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. And in order to arrive at this unique idea, you have to take all the steps, right? All the way through. Like, if you miss one of them, if you turn sideways at halfway, like, you're never gonna arrive there. At least maybe you'll make a sudden turn later on, but I mean, I guess, but whatever, it doesn't really matter for the sake of this discussion. The point is that this path should be unique, right? That's how you get to a unique location, through a unique path. So this path is difficult and special, or specific, if you wish, would be a better word probably. And sometimes you need very special ingredients, to cook something very special. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. Like, maybe imagine this, like, you've seen some very specific puzzle when you were very young, like, I don't know, 6 years old. So you saw this super unique puzzle and you thought about it a lot, and it kind of stuck in your brain for quite a while, but it was kind of dormant, right? It was lying there in your, I don't know, subconscious maybe, in your memory. So there was some sort of, if you wish to look at it like mechanistically, I guess, reductionistically, reductionist kind of way, there was some network of neurons kind of prepared. Like, it was just lying dormant, but it's kind of prepared, like a sleeper agent type of network, it's already primed. The neurons are ready to fire at any point, whenever it's going to be relevant, whenever you encounter something similar to that puzzle, right? Or something relevant to it anyways. And okay, so maybe that's one part of the trick of getting to a unique location. Maybe another part is like a song you've heard when you were 20, you were like all romantic and whatever, and you just heard this song. There was a very weird type of lyric very weird type of symbolism there, but it kind of stuck in your head as well. But then you overheard some discussion in a subway a couple of years later, then you thought about it, and it also kind of, you know, turned into this dormant network of neurons. And then you're working on some problem, and suddenly, like, all of this kind of combines. All of this kind of snaps together and forms sort of like a key for this, I don't know, door, like the lock you encounter at the very end of your journey to solving this problem. And you arrive at this unique idea because you have all these unique experiences, which essentially only you have. I mean, maybe other people have similar experiences, but maybe they don't even work on this same problem as you do, but you do, and hence it is you who arrive at this unique idea. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of a, I don't even know how to formulate this. I'll give you a couple of other examples, I guess, to demonstrate what I mean. Like, if you ever played in a quest game, you know, where you like gather some items, solve some puzzles again, and like sometimes some quest games, like you bring items from the very beginning of the game to almost the very end, and the items themselves seem completely useless. And but the character, your protagonist or whatever, kind of keeps them deliberately, and you don't really know why, but then you kind of try every item on every object that you see in the location to solve the main puzzle, if you're stuck, if you don't really know what to do, etc., etc. So yeah, so it's kind of like this, right? Like your experiences that you gather along the way in your life, they're like these items in this quest game, and you never really know when you will need any of them, really. So life is not really a quest game, right? So you probably won't even need most of them ever. However, there may be some of these unique items that you have and nobody else has, which would allow you to solve something that no one else can, just because, again, because of the very fact that you have these items that are kind of needed, at least to arrive at a solution that you can arrive at, having those items with respect to everyone else who doesn't have them. So yeah, and this is, here I'm kind of coming to the second tragedy of thinking, which I've advertised at the beginning. So what I mean by that is that since life is not a quest game, you actually miss all kinds of ideas every day, right? All kinds of locks remain forever locked just because you miss a necessary item that you probably, you know, never got because you've never been to a unique life situation where you could have get this item from. And maybe no one else has this item because no one else has ever been to this situation yet. Or maybe like a dozen people who have been to this situation have nothing to do with the problem you're dealing with right now, right? Or maybe they're dead or something. Maybe they're like delusional and are in a madhouse or something, or mental institution, how they say these days, right? Etc. So yeah, this is the second tragedy of thinking, that people miss all kinds of ideas every day. Every person misses, roughly speaking, infinite amount of ideas every day just because they're missing a small portion, a small part of the key required to open this lock and uncover this idea, if you know what I mean. And every one of us, like again, every human being does miss infinity of ideas every day. And this is the second tragedy of thinking. Remember the first one that I just called the tragedy of thinking was that infinite number of ideas gets lost because people don't finish the thinking. They just stop and think, well, I'll come back to it later, but later they can't come back to it because they've changed themselves, right? So their inventory got completely changed in the span of time they took for this pause. But here I'm talking about just not having an item in the first place, right? So this is the second tragedy of thinking. Or other analogies you might probably bring forth is like I was thinking at some point that's like a set of filters, like differently oriented filters. Like imagine you're like a ball falling through this like almost chaotic mesh of holes. And like, it's very unlikely that you will get to like a specific point at the bottom of this system, right? So the trajectory has to be really unique for you to get into some specific point, because again, the filters are all, you know, these meshes, they're all kind of rotated around each other, and etc., etc. So this may be another analogy. Or an obvious analogy is the labyrinth. By the way, watch my video, Glass Labyrinths of Power, I've called it, where I say how you don't really understand what people in power are thinking and how they behave. Like, their behavior sometimes looks completely irrational to you just because you don't see this landscape of power they're traversing, right? It doesn't impact you, but it does impact them. Yet for you, it's imperceptible, and therefore you think they're crazy because they move in weird ways, but they actually move in completely understandable ways from their standpoint, okay? And you can actually track it on your own life if you try to look at your own behavior from outside, so to speak. So a labyrinth, obviously, in order to get to a certain point, well, that depends on the structure of the labyrinth itself, obviously, on its topology, roughly speaking, but you may think of labyrinths that would be constructed in such a way that there would be only one trajectory possible to reach a certain point in this labyrinth. So this is a legit analogy as well. Another analogy I've had is like, imagine you're just, okay, so it's kind of like a labyrinth, but with doors. All right, so you arrive at some room and there's like 100 doors, and you have like maybe 20 keys, and maybe most of them don't work on neither of the doors, but maybe one key unlocks one door. Okay, so you've had enough items in your like networks of things, of items, to unlock at least this door. Then this door leads you to another room with another like 100 doors, or 500 or 1,000, or scale it up as much as you want. And you try your keys on these doors. Maybe you've actually gotten some more keys because you have some more experience now. I mean, it's kind of like mimicking a passage of time. So you try your keys, then you go someplace else. There you have more doors. You try your keys there, then you get someplace else, etc., etc. And so you can see that since your keys are an analogy for experiences you've had throughout your life, and not only your per se experiences, if you know what I mean, like genetics also plays a role. So it's like kind of like experiences of all the lineage that you have, actually, plus you as an individual, obviously. So yeah, so you arrive at this, you will be traversing like a completely unique trajectory, right, with respect to different people, and thus you will arrive at some unique idea, or you won't, you know. Maybe your trajectory will be so unique that you will miss actually most of ideas that normal people arrive at pretty easily, but maybe for you they would be unacceptable due to your unique experiences, if they're really unique. Okay, so that's a kind of a backside of it, right? Another side of it. And here I wish to talk about what I would call phantom argumentation. So what I mean by that is, so I've just told you about how you actually arrive at the idea, right? So you have some set of unique experiences, and sort of like, again, a unique fusion thereof kind of produces this idea. At least this is kind of the initial motivation for you to arrive at the idea in the first place. Like, again, this puzzle that you saw in your childhood, this song you've heard, like whatever, blah, 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 okay? Like some random feeling you felt throughout most of your life that most of the people never even encounter at all, right? Something like that, something very unique. So this is the real argumentation, if you know what I mean, for the idea you're stating, you arrive at. However, when you're trying to speak out, when you're trying to share your idea with other people, it wouldn't be very productive to try to put them in your shoes, if you wish, and experience these things that have led you to this idea. So usually it's accepted to like build a completely fake argumentation for your idea, which has real argumentation from your personal unique experiences. So you build a completely fake argumentation behind it, okay? Instead, in order to share it with other people, because other people don't have your experiences, but they still have to kind of understand the idea, where it's coming from, how it relates to other ideas. So you have to build up this fake bridge towards it so that they can traverse it, right? Even though they don't have your experiences, which actually have led you to the idea. So you have to, like, in this analogy with the labyrinth, you have to, like, kind of, I don't know, invent some RAM to slam the walls and just put them in a proper place where you found the idea, or something to that effect. I don't know. Like, the analogy kind of breaks down at this point, honestly. But the point is, yeah, you invent fake argumentation. This is what I call phantom argumentation. So an actual motivation or inspirations of the ideas are rarely talked about. Maybe, like, an author might mention them in memoirs, you know. Oh, by the time I was really inspired by, I don't know, dodecaphonic music, and I thought, well, maybe this thing, blah, 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 you know. And I also watched this movie by David Lynch, whatever, like, you name it, right? So the actual motivation and inspirations are rarely talked about, though they represent the true inner workings of the idea. Okay, the way you arrive at it, essentially. But then we kind of externally justify the already ready idea, forgive me for this pun, with something completely different. And again, watch my video, Methods, I think it's called Methods of Ulysses and Theseus, or something like that, or Theseus and Ulysses, where I talk about how method of Theseus is just following the method, exactly. And the method, like, you just follow the set of rules and you don't know where you're going, actually. You're just following the set of rules wherever it gets you to. But the method of Ulysses is you know where you're going to. You just maybe don't know how to get there. And this is exactly what you're doing when you're constructing fake argumentation. You know the idea you have to arrive at, and you're trying to concoct some sort of route to it for other people to follow. This is the argumentation, the method of Ulysses, how I call it, at least. So imagine, like, you have an electric fireplace or something, right? So it has this picture in front of it, right, with the fancy dancing flames as if they were there, and an actual fire, but it's not there, right? It's electric, so yeah. Yeah, the fireplace is electric. Yo, electric universe. Everything's electric. Anyways. Or a chandelier, right? In modern churches, you have chandeliers with, like, electric light bulbs instead of candles. So it's also fake, right? Etc., etc. Like any kind of fake mechanism would do as an illustration here. Okay. Let's talk about, oh yeah. Why wouldn't I talk about one of my own ideas, at least? Like, I have this biogenic earthquake hypothesis, see the link in the description, for a video and a paper about it. So how did it actually appear? Well, I've actually been a follower of electric universe paradigm, right? Everything's electric. And from there, I've learned that there are huge telluric currents, like, traversing the Earth's crust and perhaps even penetrating much deeper into the below the surface of the Earth. So there are telluric currents, so electric currents traversing the Earth, right? Large scale. Plus, I've learned from following one of these electric universe groups, there was like a big piece of news in 2014 about electrotrophic bacteria. So bacteria that can feed off of electricity alone. It sounds kind of insane, but it's actually, like, easily understandable when you understand that breathing is actually just the transport of electrons to oxygen from other atoms, right? So, which means that in order to breathe, you don't really need oxygen, you just need electron transport, which is basically just an electric current. So you can breathe through electric currents, roughly speaking. I mean, by you, I don't mean a human being. I do mean just a living being, which is specialized to feed in this kind of way. But anyway, so telluric currents, electrotrophic bacteria, and various, research into electric nature of earthquakes. These are, like, the main ingredients of my idea of how bacteria can cause earthquakes, because I thought, like, wait a minute, like, well, if there are big currents flowing through the Earth, like deep below the surface, and there are bacteria that can feed off of currents in general, why wouldn't there be a lot of bacteria beneath the surface that feeds off of telluric currents? Well, bang. And like, since at least some of the, I mean, there are hypotheses, let's put it this way, that earthquakes can be caused by some sort of electromagnetic phenomena. Maybe these bacteria can cause earthquakes. If they, like, the telluric currents increase, the bacteria kind of proliferate and they cause earthquake, like, why not? I mean, and I just started kind of rolling with it, and there you go. I have my paper. So, of course, in reality, I'm trying to phantomly argument it with something else. I'm saying, well, there's a lot of subsurface biomass, and well, it's pretty, life in general is pretty tough and tenacious, etc., etc., so maybe blah blah blah. But this is not the real origin of the idea. The real origin of an idea was completely different, right? Or at least somewhat different. Okay, so let us end with the origins of taste, or origin, I don't know, plural or singular, whatever. So, I mean, the aesthetic taste, you know, like what kind of art do you like? What kind of, actually anything you like. People, food, you know, kind of moods, places, whatever. It's clear from what I've just said that like, the approach is kind of general because it just shows you your trajectory through life. It doesn't really necessarily focuses on the products of your, let's say, theoretical reasoning or your own actually artwork, you know. It actually, like what I've described above, like how people's style evolve, etc., etc. It also is fitting, like the model I've proposed to you, and multiple metaphors for it, I guess. But also just, yeah, in general, like what you are about, including your taste. So you have a unique story, which doesn't really have any blueprint, you know, except from, again, the genetic background, okay? See my video, Eat from Bit, where I emphasize the role of genetics in our perception of reality. But anyway, most of the humans have very similar genetics, right? So your uniqueness among humans is not really determined by genetics, at least to not such a high degree, right? It's of course influenced by genetics with respect to your uniqueness with respect to bananas or whatever, dolphins, right? But among humans, like, it's actually more nurture, I would say, than nature. It's more culture than your genetic background. But of course, genetic background matters as well. So yeah. So Eat from Bit, right? Where I emphasize this point. So that's why perceiving the work of art in particular, so having a different taste in art, is so different for different people, because they have such a different background, again, caused by the uniqueness of their trajectories through life. So one person may look at a piece of art, they will miss all the cultural references, they will miss like everything, but they will focus on, let's say, how people talk to each other, or maybe what kind of mimic they do, what kind of gestures they do. Maybe this is the sort of person they are, right? That's how they kind of used to interpret reality through some sort of kinesthetics or whatever, right? Another person would maybe be overly focused on the like the abstract conceptual side of things, right? Etc. So you can see that there is so much depth. Like, roughly speaking, any object can have infinite number of interpretations, okay, depending on where you're looking at it from. It's kind of trivial, I know, and it kind of sucks to even say it, but I mean, sometimes you gotta say the obvious things, okay? So yeah. But returning to the main point of this video is, just returning to the main point of this video, what I've talked about was that in order to get to a profound idea, you have to pass through, roughly speaking, tests along the way. And every test brings you closer, passing of the test rather, brings you closer to your goal, to your unique idea. However, not passing any of these tests, like, forever bars you from ever reaching it. And that's what I call the tragedy, the second tragedy of thinking, rather. Namely, the inability, or rather, the infinite amount of ideas that are being missed every day by every person on this planet just because they don't have enough means of reaching this idea because it lies on some sort of unique trajectory, inaccessible to anyone. All right. Thank you for watching. The eons are closing. If you wish to support me, please consider joining my Patreon. That is patreon.com/philosopher. See the link in the description. Or if you have a scientific theory of your own and you'd like my help in developing it, please join my alternative science coaching program, also available through Patreon.